Hey guys, so today I am going to talk about the debate. I threw up a few highlight clips. Frankly, it wasn't my best work. My editing software went to crap. Don't want to go into too much detail on that. But anyway, this debate. This was the Romney, this was the Perry show. You know, all the questions were directed at them, and they definitely dominated the debate time-wise. If you actually look at, if you time frame it, it's like they get 2/3 of the time on air. It's insane. And, you know, I think it definitely demonstrates that, you know, the race, what the media wants to portray the race as, at least, is a two-tier race where you got Romney and Perry and then you got everybody else. And maybe they'll put in a, you know, middle tier, but that's kind of a weak proposal. The other thing I'll mention is, while this debate was definitely highlighted the, you know, differences between these two candidates, it doesn't really matter, because right now, by the time I get this video up, it's probably going to be either 5 minutes before the president's speech or, you know, a half an hour before football. So either way, it's going to get stomped on by these other stories, and it's just going to be forgotten. And the other thing is that there's another debate in like a week on CNN. It's the Tea Party debate. You should check it out, I guess, but I'm not really plugging that one. But, you know, no, that's a good thing for a lot of these candidates, because they didn't do very well. Probably the one that jumps out the most, the one that lost this debate in the spin room, maybe, and frankly, she just didn't get the questions she needed to actually win this, is Bachmann. She just did not bring anything to the argument, to the debate. She just wasn't there. I mean, it was like, if she wasn't there, I would not have noticed. I mean, frankly, it would have been better if she wasn't there, because then it wouldn't have fed this news cycle about her being super weak. The other thing is that there had already been this story developing that her candidacy was on the downturn, that, you know, she had lost half her support. There was some movement within her, you know, PACs and stuff. There was definite signs of weakness in her camp, in that this debate just kind of fed those rumors, fed that general feeling that she is definitely on the downturn, and that just didn't, this debate did not help. Now, the other candidates, I'll start with Ron Paul, because the last video that I upped, somebody commented that I didn't put enough Ron Paul things, and that's probably right. He usually on, if you do polling and stuff with these debates, he almost always wins, and in my opinion, he always does a lot better than the media wants to present him as, and there's no question in my mind. Though, for a Ron Paul debate, I think this one was one of his weaker debates. Probably the weakest this season. I'm going to be real with you. I think the reason why is, number one, the questions got him kind of pinned into this kind of, not really extremist, but they pinned him down into this corner where he didn't really get to talk about his own ideas as much as other candidates did. You know, they were more generality questions. They weren't really about his candidacy, if you will. You know what I'm saying? They weren't really about his book. They were about his feelings on various issues. And it's an interesting thing. For example, just to demonstrate this, Perry got asked about his book, Fed Up, a lot. Ron Paul got asked about the airplane he flew in on, kind of stuff. There were different kinds of questions, and that definitely weakened his ability to really talk about himself, which he does a very good job at. But without that, also, before I totally drop this Ron Paul thing, I think the other thing that kind of hurt him is that he did something he doesn't do in most debates, which is he went on the offensive. He attacked Perry a couple times, tried to throw a couple jabs. In that, you know, Ron Paul, you can say a lot of things about Ron Paul. He's got, you know, very interesting proposals. He has a very loyal fan base, but he's not very good at hitting other candidates. That's just true. Some people got it, some people don't. He just doesn't really got it. He's not a person who's going to swing punches. He's a person that's going to make a proposal in a debate. You see what I'm saying? And he just didn't bring the, you know, he didn't really swing at him. He just kind of said it. And I think this, though, does demonstrate that I think he really does think he's got a chance of winning this. He's in third place if you average out the polls. I'm going to bring that up again. And, you know, frankly, if Romney or Perry implode, it's going to be it's going to be him versus one of those, and then he's got a pretty good shot of winning. If you look at the polling inside states, he's not that bad either. You know, he could theoretically, if he actually really starts getting some movement, you know, pull ahead in Iowa, like if Bachmann completely implodes and Perry doesn't do that well, which is hard to imagine, but it's a lot more feasible than a lot of these other candidates. So that's what I'm going to say about Ron Paul. I think that he was weak in this debate because he was trying things that he doesn't usually do, and that kind of weakened him. Also, the questions kind of pinned him in this corner where he couldn't really talk about himself or his ideas. That weakened him overall. The other candidates, I'll go into Gingrich. Gingrich was, Gingrich had a couple good lines. You know, he said, you know, immigrants should learn English. That's always red meat to a Republican crowd, and he hit the media. Oh, do they love it when you hit the media? Oh, the crowd just, everybody was into it. They were all devouring the media. It was a wonderful line. But once again, I don't think that this debate's going to help him. Frankly, he's been stuck at about 5% forever, and I don't think that he's in the point. He's on life support, so it doesn't matter if he's swinging. He's just moving his arms on the bed. He's not going to hit anybody. You follow? He's so far gone that it's not going to work out for him. He's got to land something harder than what he's throwing. Now, having said that, I think that his campaign has definitely improved. It would seem near a total collapse just about a month ago. It seemed like he was gone, and he's really brought it back in a sense. Now, I got to look at this. The person who I personally, well, here, we'll go into Perry, because this is the main event. This is the main thing that this debate was. The vast majority of the debate was dominated by Perry and Romney, and what was interesting is Perry is ahead nationally in the polls and in Iowa, okay? These are two things, you know, you average out the polls, it's what you get. But he did something very interesting. He tried hitting Romney. He tried swinging at him. He did it on the jobs thing. You know, he said, you made less jobs than Dukakis, which is like, I mean, that's like trying to cut somebody's nuts off in a Republican debate. It's just, you know, that's hard. That's actually pretty hardcore to do, especially in your opening debate in like the first 5 minutes. That's kind of hardcore to try. I mean, we're talking about a debate, so this isn't really, you know, it's not like he's actually cutting anybody or anything. But, and then he tried hitting him again on the healthcare thing. Frankly, I think that both of those didn't really land hard. They kind of just glanced off at best. You know, I don't think he really tore Romney up. Frankly, Romney avoided these, you know, attacks fairly well. This is actually a really good debate for Romney overall, I'd say. But it's interesting because I think that means that his campaign really thought they had a knockout moment. That, you know, he's 10 points ahead on average in the polls nationwide, and I think that they thought this was a knockout moment, they should swing for the fences, and then they just didn't pan out. Now, Romney avoided these hits, and he countered when attacked, but otherwise, even though he's 10 points down, he didn't really try to attack him. It was very interesting. I mean, we're far enough out that it's not going to matter. Like I said, this debate is going to get swallowed up by other stories. The one tonight, which is President Obama, so it doesn't really matter. But he was able to avoid a lot of these hits. Now, I'm going to mention Santorum. I think Santorum was one of these candidates, kind of like Bachmann. That was like, why did you even show up? You know, they didn't really bring anything to the debate. And frankly, I think Santorum, it's nothing against what he said necessarily. He just didn't bring the atmosphere that he needed to the debate. It just felt like he was talking to himself. He wasn't really including the rest of the audience. He just talked about his record, which is a good place to mention, but you shouldn't just cling to that. Also, what he said about the poor and stuff, well, that plays to a Republican crowd. I know a lot of people that are Democrats are, you know, that's it. They're never going to even think about Santorum. The other thing is I think Santorum was doomed from the start. If you Google his name, you'll see what I mean. There wasn't much chance for him. So I think he's out, basically. You know, we'll see. I don't think he's got a future. He's not going to win. In my opinion. Now, if I'm proven wrong, I will print these words off and I will eat them, okay? If we get a Santorum presidency, you know. Kane did his 999 thing. He's definitely a presence there, but it wasn't his best debate. Frankly, the second or first debate was his best, I'd say. Bachmann, why did she even show up? I'm going to say it again. I'm just trying to go through all the names here. I wrote down a couple of them, so I'm going to look at this piece of paper because I always forget people that are there. Huntsman. Huntsman tried to go moderate, and I think this was his best debate, though I don't think he's got much of a chance. I think this is, you know, it's like I said in an earlier video, I think this is his, you know, last real big swing. He's trying for the fences. He hit Romney and Perry a little bit on the record, but he just isn't a person that I can see being president, at least from a Republican field. He's not conservative enough, and frankly, I don't think that he gets the media coverage he's not controversial enough to get the media coverage to get him, you know, really going. And just he doesn't have it to hit very hard, you know, politically. He can't land a punch very well. Now, having said that, in this debate, I think he did a very good job. This is probably the best that you can expect from Huntsman, and he did a decent job at trying to hit the other candidates. When he did the science thing, he definitely brought some distance between them, but I just don't think he landed any of them. The other thing I'm going to mention is with Perry. Perry hurt himself a little bit, I think, when he brought up that Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. Whether you agree with it or not, there's some bullshit truisms in America where if you question them, you get hurt. And I think he definitely hit one of those. There was a couple other lines, like, he had the worst example, I think, for questioning science, which he brought up Galileo, okay? That, if your point is that science, you know, persecutes science or something, that is the worst example you could bring up, because what happened? A religious group basically threw Galileo in prison, you know, or put him in house arrest, basically because they didn't like his idea. That was a bad example to bring up when you're talking about evolution, because you know, you got a religious group, you got science, but it wasn't a good example. Now, having said that, whether you agree with his position or not, I just don't think that was a good example. I think that he definitely worked through it. No one's really going to remember the science thing, except either really like liberals or really conservative people that hate him. You know, nobody's going to remember these lines unless I just can't see him being used too effectively politically. Except for I do think that one where it's a Ponzi scheme is going to hurt, because that You don't say that. That's a truism in America. Whatever you do, you don't question that. So we'll see. He might be able to pull through it. I'm not one of these that puts too much emphasis on these words. It's not going to cost him the presidency. It is going to hurt him a little bit. I can see that being a line in an ad. What else to bring up? I'm going to look at my little magic sheet, see if I forgot anybody. Talk about Gingrich, Bachmann, Huntsman, Ron Paul. I mentioned Kane. I think one thing before I totally end this video that was interesting is that while they mentioned foreign policy and they definitely question Obama's track record on it, especially with Libya, with aspects dealing with Libya, I should say, they didn't focus on it, and I think that shows where Obama has eroded a former Republican strong position, which was, you know, the Democrats can't handle foreign policy. Also, you saw a lot more, you can see the candidates definitely moving away from that issue primarily. They want to talk about the economy, which makes sense. That's where Obama is weak. So no surprise there. The social issues did not come up. You know, I don't think I heard abortion mentioned once. I mean, and that's incredible in a Republican primary debate. Don't ask, don't tell, I don't think got mentioned either. Those two issues basically dropped. The only trigger word you really heard was Obamacare and Obamacare or whatever. Those were basically it, and I think that's surprising. Guns didn't come up. Think of all the social issues. Immigration came up, but immigration seems to be kind of it wasn't as big of an issue as it was just a couple years ago. Nobody really, there's not much mind for it because the economy's so bad. Anyway, that's it. Subscribe, comment, rate.